massacre, and their attorney, Demario Solomon Simmons.
It only took 103 years, but this is a joyous occasion.
The review was launched under a federal cold case initiative that's led to prosecutions of some civil rights era cases. But Assistant U.S. Attorney General Kristen Clark says she has no expectation that anyone living could be prosecuted as a result of the Tulsa inquiry.
ABC's Jim Ryan. 2 teams have filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. It's seeking unspecified damages, alleging the charter system limits competition by binding teams to the stock car series. One of those filing suit, team-owned, co-owned by Michael Jordan. The largest dam removal project in U.S. history has wrapped. The dam on the Klamath River and the California-Oregon border cuts salmon off from their habitat. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
When it comes to my lifestyle and diet, I don't always make the smartest choices.
Touchdown! Woo! Hey, another round and some more chips.
But when it comes to taking care of my liver, I do make one very smart choice. Active liver tablets from New Nordic. I used to have real issues with my liver, and at my last checkup, my doc was concerned about my numbers. But since adding a once-a-day active liver tablet, my gut's better, I feel great, and my doctor's happy. I ask a lot of my liver, so the least I can do to say thanks is a daily dose of Active Liver.
You ask a lot of your liver, so give it the support it needs with Active Liver. You can find Active Liver at Amazon.com, or for a volume discount, visit NewNordicUSA.com. Go to NordicUSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. New year, new you. New Nordic.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Grosvenor.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives. It's Wednesday night. It is the Common Sense Conservatives. I'm Todd McKinley here in Northeast Tennessee, joined by my co-host, John Grosvenor, who holds down the studio, and waiting on Colonel Chris Wyatt, our other usual co-host. And we're trying a new platform tonight. So we're working out a few kinks here at the beginning of the show. And there's the Colonel just joining us now. And I see John and everybody. Colonel, how do you read me there, sir?
Well, I can hear you, but I'm trying to find out why this thing's not working properly. There we go.
Right. Yeah. John, how about you? How do you read me? How do you see me?
Oh, reading you loud and clear, Todd. As good as it could be. I know you need to upgrade to your microphone so you can boom the rest of us. But as good as it could be, yeah, man, you're coming in. I got to rub it in on him a little bit, Chris.
I see that. Yeah, no, gentlemen, we got on time for the air, but I have to say that I had a little challenge here. I thought that I had a Restream account. I know I did, but wouldn't let me in with my username. I had to sit around and work around with it for a while. Yeah.
All you should needed was the login. The link that I sent you.
No, you have to sign in. It won't let you do anything.
Yeah.
What? Right. Did you have to do that, Todd?
I had to do a couple things just like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, but yeah, it worked out. But I could see I could see the Colonel here, and of course, John, you're just cut off a little bit different than StreamYard whenever we use that. But I can see everybody.
Todd, your camera looks a lot better than usual. Did you do something different?
No, same thing. Maybe it's just it doesn't come through on the other one. I don't know. But hey, that's okay. But we are going out over radio, of course, over 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Both of those are WSMN, and they're right down in Nashua, New Hampshire. Of course, I'm Tom McKinley, as I said, at the top of the hour there. Working out a few kinks here with our co-host, Colonel Chris Wyatt, and, of course, John Grosvenor holding down the studio. Trying down a new software to bring us together here and talk about, talk to you guys every Wednesday night, solving the problems of the world, one word at a time, I think. But last night's debate, I'm sure everybody watched it. It's on everybody's mind. Everybody's talking about it. What was your thoughts on the debate, the VP debate?
Well, who you asking?
Chris has got that look like deer in the headlights. What's going on here? That's not normal.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to the Colonel Wyatt first.
Well, I'm ready to answer the question, John, but I didn't want to step on your toes.
I caught that.
Okay. Well, let's see. that was actually a debate last night. We haven't seen one of those in years. That was an actual debate. The candidates interacted with each other largely in a respectful manner, polite, friendly. They tried to call it Midwestern friendly. That's just American politeness. That's not Midwestern. I've lived all over the country. Something that's been missing in discourse for a long time now. So, yeah, no, I thought it was a pretty good debate as far as debates go. And I have to say that J.D. Vance wiped the floor with Tim Walz. He looked like a deer in the headlight a couple of times. And if we would actually put a lie meter on there, he got about 6 Pinocchios on that last night. He even tried the Project 2025. That fell flat. Even without an audience, it fell flat. Right. He tried to lie about, having federal agencies to register your pregnancy with. And then the shocker for me was that the leftist evil shrew moderators actually challenged him about his lies about Tiananmen Square. So look, think about this, guys.
And he tried to dodge it.
Oh, he did dodge it completely. And then actually came back and went after him. But think about this. Little Timmy Walz, little stolen valor. He's proud of the fact that he was in China when they crushed democracy. Think about that. Yeah, look at my CV. I was in China when the totalitarian fascists, my friends, crushed democracy. Yay! Vance was brilliant. Look, I'm on record as saying I'm not a fan of J.D. Vance. I think he's a made-for-politics candidate. I've not seen any substance out of him in the Senate. I've not seen any substance out of him as a candidate. I will say that last night, I had told people the needle won't be moved, and it won't. I'm voting for Trump. That hasn't changed. But if I wasn't voting for Trump last night, it would have changed my vote. J.D. Vance was that impressive. He was that on point. I still don't trust him 100%. I don't believe someone that makes up things about Appalachia at the expense of people actually from there like me. And so, but I have to say that brilliant. Now, the one thing that frustrates me with the debate last night, it frustrates me with Republicans in general. Why can't some Republican read the Constitution? Whenever the Dobbs decision comes up and the left tries to paint you with the abortion thing, don't kowtow to them. He did a little bit of that. He had one of the more nuanced and better answers as a Republican. But here's the answer. The 10th Amendment expressly forbids powers not enumerated to the federal government by the Constitution or prohibited to the states by the Constitution to remain with the states and or the people respectively. Therefore, the federal government has no authority to regulate abortion, save federal institutions, the VA, military care. They can do that, but they have no say over your body or over your child that's unborn in your womb anywhere in the country. Only the states and or the people through a referendum can actually make that decision. Why don't somebody just say, I'm tired of Republicans. It's ridiculous. They talk about, they're not talking about the deficit. How about telling people, this deficit is larger than the entire federal budget was in the year 2000, just 24 years ago. Republicans frustrate me, and he frustrated me last night with his, we could do better as Republicans. No, we don't have to do better. Just tell the truth. Tell the truth. Not a single state in the union is abortion illegal. Not a single state in the union. And these fairy tale stories about little Molly Johnson had to fly 6 states across there to have an abortion and she would have died. And 12-year-old died. These are just lies and fiction. Oh, like they all know these people. Give me a freaking break. Look, it is an issue, but this is just nonsense. So that bothered me. But what I do want to say is this. When the scumbag shrew moderators lied and said we're not fact checking, their questions were fact checks. They asked direct, pointed questions to elicit a response and put Vance on the defensive. Now they did that to Walz, but just once or twice. They did advance throughout the evening, but the questions were actually fact checks, lies, and then they fact checked him after he said something about the Haitian immigrants. So they just want to get the stuff across because they love to play the racist card. But give him credit. He's the only person other than me that I've heard publicly say, listen, I don't care what Mike DeWine says about them being legal. It's a lie. They entered this country illegally. They're criminal innovators. He didn't say that, but he said they entered illegally. You can't wave a magic wand in the Trump or the Biden administration and say they're legal now because they came here now. They applied for something they're not entitled to. Your first act entering this company, it makes you a felon, then you're a felon. There you go. Anyway, so I thought the debate was a slam dunk for Vance, and I went in not liking J.D. Vance. I went in detesting Timmy Walz, and I will say about Timmy Walz, I was impressed. I thought he might implode. He did better than I expected. But of course, when you're telling lies the whole time, I suppose you don't feel too much remorse.
Yeah, right. And of course, it's hard to actually for him to step into a role, having not been a part of this administration for the 3.5 years, and now somehow has to defend the administration in order to ensure Kamala can get the top job, and also so he can get the number 2 spot. It's like kind of a hard rock and a hard place, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, to step into the role and you have to defend something that you've not been a part of, you know?
Well, to be fair, neither one of them, Vance wasn't part of the previous administration, and Waltz is not part of this one.
True,
and
fair.
I think another thing that happened very well last night is J.D. Vance painted Tim Waltz, but more importantly, he painted Kamala Harris as being complicit and guilty in the Biden regime, and that stuck. That stuck like plaster all over him. Yeah. And that's the upshot. Now, it's funny because I looked at news reports from around the world, like I normally do for my news broadcast earlier today, and I'm looking at the Guardian in the UK, I'm looking at the BBC, I'm looking at German and French newspapers, and I'm looking at American newspapers. And shockingly, some of the leftist U.S. media outlets were honest about the debate. For instance, the Washington Post actually shared with us the 14 people that they brought in who were supposedly middle of the road, undecided, and 8 of them. It was 22. 14 of them went for Vance, and 8 went for Waltz. The New York Times said that Vance wiped the slate with him. Essentially, my words, not theirs. The New York Times admitted that Vance won it. Now, the Guardian admitted that Vance was done a great job, but they say, well, it doesn't matter. Donald Trump's still a threat to the world, So they can't themselves. But the leftists overseas continue their leftist nonsense. But I saw some adjustment here in the States for leftist media outlets in being honest. Now, look, we've talked about this before. Trump's debate was a disaster, but Kamala Harris was just, it's Pinocchio season. Everything she said was a complete lie, and it wasn't a debate. It was just a trap set up by the media. So that was a joke. And to be fair, it could have been entertaining if Trump had been on his game, but he wasn't on his game. He was too defensive. But Vance, man, this guy was polished, absolutely polished. This was the best performance I've seen in a debate. Oh, gosh. I mean, I can't remember a debate that's been this good by someone involved in it. He did a fantastic job. And it's just amazing. I thought Vance was really impressive.
Oh, absolutely. And now, what about some of the gaffes last night that some of the people are trying to seize upon where, Tim Waltz says, accidentally says he's become friends with school shooters, and he meant to say school shooting victims. I thought he
meant to say that I've become friends with the victims of school shooters. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to go on with that. That's unfair to little Timmy Waltz. That's unfair. Stolen Valor's got enough headaches without people carping over that. That was just a slip of the tongue, and I wouldn't hold that against him. If Vance said it, they hold it against him. Oh, but absolutely. But no, I don't hold against Waltz. And what I do hold against him is that when he was asked to answer the question about his lies, and this talks about his character, the guy will lie to let people get false impressions about how great and great. I mean, the people in my district know who I am. They voted for me 12 years. They know what they're getting. No, listen, jerk. They asked you why you lied about Tiananmen Square. Just be honest. You say, look, I was young. I got
biography, man. It was great. A rendition of his whole life.
And I don't really care about how stupid the people of Minnesota are voting for this moron to be a member of Congress. That doesn't impress me. Tell the truth. If you'd have done a mea culpa, said, listen, I'm want to hyperbole. And early in my career, I overstated, misspoke. I regret it. It was my mistake. The truth of the matter is that I did go there, but it was after the events. It was just after it, and I got caught up in the emotion of it. So my apologies if it misinformed people, but that wasn't the case. It wasn't there. If he'd have done that, he'd have gained a lot of respect from me.
Right. Yep.
But
he tried to imply that he actually said it while giving his biography, which he didn't.
Nah, he's just a weasel boy. So, stolen valor Timmy. I want to call him tampon Timmy, but to me, he's stolen valor Timmy. He's not a command sergeant major. He didn't retire as a command sergeant major. He never deployed in combat. He misled people, tricking them and believing he went there. He lied about having seen people come back in dignified returns of remains at Dover. He's just a piece of crap liar. He lied about his DUI, claiming he was deaf because of his military service when he was still serving in the National Guard. We don't let deaf soldiers in the National Guard. You have to get discharged. I'm sorry if that seems mean, but we sort of need you to be able to hear when a tank comes at you or artillery rounds start landing or when we call on the radio. You can't do this American Sign Language on the radio. It doesn't work. So we have to have soldiers that are fit. And he's a liar. He lied in Nebraska when he was going 94, 97 miles an hour in a 55 zone to a state trooper and blamed his intoxication on his balance issues because he was deaf. That's a lie. And he got out of a DUI because of it. The man who does that, the man who misleads you about what he retired as in the military to try to impress you because people think he thinks that most people aren't that smart, and a person who lies to you about where they were in 1989. Ladies and gentlemen, I was on the campus of Ohio University in June of 1989, graduating from Ohio University with a high honors degree or honors degree in history. That's where I was at. I remember exactly what I was doing when Tiananmen Square unfolded. I remember exactly what I was doing when Elvis Presley died. I remember exactly what I was doing when the Challenger blew up. I remember exactly what, you get the point, where I was at 9/11. How has anybody our age not remember where they were when Tiananmen Square occurred? I'm not talking about the day that the guy was standing in front of the tank. I'm talking about the events. And this guy's like, I was in Hong Kong. You're a liar. You're a liar. And, this is the guy that's been training kids and teaching kids for decades, and call him coach. He's a fraud. He's not worthy of any office, let alone the vice presidency.
The interesting thing about it, and what's kind of noteworthy, is he said he was taking groups of people to China.
Right.
After the Tiananmen Square. So basically, he's introducing people to communist China.
Well, you make a very good point there, John, that I didn't even focus on. It's a valid point. Yeah. Again, the guy has too cozy relationship with communists. But I mean, it makes sense. He comes from Minnesota. They love socialism up there. They got the farmers, workers party nonsense going on in Minnesota for years. Well, we're going to get flamed for that one.
Right. But at least the right doesn't have to set up fake organizations to be able to get an endorsement from, right?
Yeah. Well, here in Pennsylvania, all these people are on my ads every day. Every time I go on YouTube or social media or on my Roku and watch streaming. And I voted for Donald Trump before, but I'm not voting anymore. I'm worried about my kids. Dude, you're an actor. We know you're not real. Stop lying. They're hiring actors to make these fake ads. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think I liked it better when Taylor Swift was endorsing her, not fake actors.
Right. Yeah. Pay people. Oh, she's just such a great person. Oh my goodness. And they have the little tea or the little latte, and like, I don't know what I would do without Kamala and her tax break or this and that. Like, oh, come on.
What tax break? See, I don't listen to how they're playing this. Their big argument is she's going to give people tax breaks, but they're not tax breaks. She's raising our taxes. She wants to raise taxes on capital gains back to 28%. She wants to put an intangibles tax on. And that affects everybody who's got any retirement account, any savings. You're going to be drained of that. There'll be nothing left when you're retired. If you own a home, you're really screwed. You're going to have to pay intangibles tax on that physical property. So she's acting like she's cutting taxes, but the tax cut is not a tax cut. It's a grant out of your pocket and mine. Earned income credit goes to people who are working but don't make enough money to live off. So we give them a credit. We give them all their tax money back, plus we give them another X numbers of thousands of dollars. And on top of that, they want to give $25,000 to everyone to get a first-time home buyer. Where's my $25,000 at? Why am I subsidizing someone else buying a home? And you think there's a housing problem now? Wait till all the criminal alien invaders get their $25,000 grants to buy homes and drive up the prices of homes for us. And what about this nonsense of giving people kindergeld? Because that's what they're doing. $6,000 to pop a kid out? That's nonsense.
Right.
For what? Why do I have to pay for someone else's child? That's your responsibility. And this whole thing last night, and Timmy Waltz and even Vance talked about, well, the most important issue that I hear is what Waltz said. Everywhere I go, people are complaining about childcare. Hey, raise your own kids. Stop leaving it to be somebody else's responsibility. And if you can't raise your own kids, don't have any. Hey, it's not my responsibility to pay for your childcare. And Vance actually hit the issue. The problem with the marketplace is there's not enough providers. So it's a provider's market. If you got 10 child care providers and 10,000 children, guess who gets what they want? The child care providers. And not to mention the overregulation, which is well-intentioned to keep pedophiles and keep criminals and keep abusers out of the system. But let's be honest, in most states, this is overregulated. And if you're a child care giver, they come after you. You just got to have some common sense. And that's one thing J.D. Vance said. Common sense needs to be applied here. And I agree 100%.
Yep, absolutely. Now, did you think that they did us a favor, I guess, being more civil than, say, Kamala or, Trump or whatever? Do you think it was more civil and you think society was, a little better for it? Or do you think it really doesn't matter at this point in our discourse?
Well, I thought it was pretty civil, and I thought it was fine. Did my microphone just change? I noticed there's a setting here. Is it all right? You guys can still hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep. Coming in.
All right, just checking. Yeah, no, I thought, look, I like the tone of it. I like the behavior of both candidates. They both were able to call each other liars politely.
Right.
No, they did. Let's be honest. They called each other liars, but I mean, it was necessary. Both of them lied or misled to some degree. J.D. Vance wasn't entirely correct in a few things he said, but
sure.
He did a fine job. And look, I think Waltz did a better job than I expected. I expected him to implode. I thought he'd get frustrated and act like that weirdo. It's sort of funny that Tim Waltz calls Donald Trump and J.D. Vance weird. Who looked weird on that stage last night? Who was composed? Who was professional? By the way, the beard works. J.D. Vance is a goober-looking guy without a beard. But with a beard, He's a good-looking fellow. But who looked better on that stage? What I really enjoyed last night is we didn't have to hear any nonsense about their families. Well, I'm married to an Indian. My kids are multiracial. I don't care if you're married to an Alpha Centaurian. That's none of my business. Well, maybe that because they're illegal aliens from another galaxy. But I don't care about who you're married to or who your kids are. And the same with Tim Walz. I've seen his wife. She's a lunatic. Keep her away from the White House. And for me, my goodness, she's scary, man. She's scarier than Timmy Walz. No wonder he's off his rocker.
Yep.
So this business about Tim Walz calling tariffs a national tax. Vance accused him of that last night, and I'm thinking to myself, tariffs have been around since the 1700s. In fact, this country's thrived off tariffs in the past.
Yeah, I know. But look, the Democrats have a point here, okay? And this is going to offend some Republicans, but just get over it. I understand economics, and a lot of you don't. So, okay. So they have a point. Let me explain the point. All right. If you impose tariffs, you drive up the cost of goods for consumers. Because if you're buying a Porsche Phaeton, or is that a Volkswagen? Who has the Phaeton? Is it Volkswagen? Yeah. Anyway, I'm not rich enough to know who owns those cars. Anyway, let's go with the BMW 735. That I know. If you buy a BMW 735 assembled in Germany, it's imported, and you pay 2% tariff on it, which I think the tariff is for goods coming in from Germany. All right, so that pushes the cost up by 2%. The 2% goes to the taxpayer or to the government fiscus, so they have it. If, however, you charge a 30% tariff on that, and it's a $100,000 car, now it's $130,000. And if I want to buy it, I got to pay $130,000. So in essence, it is a tax on me. You don't really think they're going to take the loss over at BMW. They're going to jack up the price.
Well,
so it's going to cost me more.
Most people that can afford a $100,000 car could probably bump it up that extra $30,000.
Secondly,
going with Trump's plan on Agenda 47, the concept is we want to bring manufacturing back to the United States of America because that's where it should be. That's where it should belong. Outsourcing only should happen when we don't have labor sources.
Sure. Trump was in administration. This is where the people that think I'm a MAGA guy are going to be disillusioned. And those who hate me because I'm honest are going to hate me too. But listen, I mean, Trump talked about reindustrializing America. It didn't happen. Only a small amount of industrialization came back to the country in Trump's administration. I don't blame Trump for that. I blame the system. Trump got rid of so many barriers that allow for people to come back, and some companies did come back. But that's a long-term process. It took 4 decades to offshore our production. It's going to take 10 or 50 years. So in the meantime, okay, I'll make it simpler. Okay, fine. I can't afford a BMW. But I'll tell you what, you can afford bananas. All right? You can afford coffee. Coffee doesn't come from America. You get bananas from Hawaii, I suppose, but you get coffee comes from overseas, Africa or Cuba, Colombia or Sumatra, somewhere like that. So the coffee costs money. And if you put a 50% tariff on a pound of coffee, then the consumer is going to pay for that. You think Starbucks is going to cut me a break because their cost went up by 50%? No. Free university. They give a free university to people at nose rings whining about their wages, acting like it's a career. It's not a career. It's a job after college class. Grow up. No,
tariffs are flexible. Okay, so we've had tariffs that we charge 20% to this Western civilized country and only 5% to China. We do that all the time.
I don't know which Western country we're charging those tariffs to. Germany's tariffs are 2%. I know this because I researched this stuff because of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which we like to pretend is a great benefit for African countries. And it is a benefit, but it's not the huge benefit that people think it is. So I don't know. Maybe that if there's a country we're doing that to. We are charging excessive tariffs on steel imports from Korea. That's a fact, 30% or something like that last time I saw.
Yeah.
But the point here is that if a tariff is put in place, a punitive tariff to discourage imports, people still have to buy things. But we don't produce coffee here. If you put on coffee, you're screwing people. Yes, you can do it on luxury goods, and then people maybe instead of buying a BMW, they'll buy a Cadillac. Do they still make those? They'll buy a Cadillac.
Yeah, they do.
Well, they don't make Buicks anymore, do they? Anyway, what is that? Maybe somebody got rats in their house? Anyway, but so it is not a tax, but it is an indirect tax on people. I mean, that's the bottom line. Consumers are paying for it. So look, the Democrats have a point, and the Republicans should be honest about it. Yes, tariffs, if you consume those goods coming in, it will cost you more, and effectively you're paying for that because we know the producers aren't going to pay for it. But if we put the tariffs on goods that most people don't buy that are luxury goods, that'll put a hurt on them. And that's what Trump should be saying. Anyway, but so they have a point there, and some folks aren't going to like what I have to say, but that's just the truth. That's just the truth. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I understand, tariffs are okay if they're at a very low percentage to generate a little bit of revenue for a country, but then I oppose income taxes. And so if I oppose income taxes, there has to be a way to get revenue, and tariffs are one way to do it. Unfortunately, the system is skewed. They're fleecing us over half our income, even middle-class folks, and they're just wasting it every year.
I want to walk it back because earlier you said something about Trump had removed barriers for the growth of industry in the United States of America. So now this is admitting, well, you're on the right anyway, but this is stating that Trump did things during his administration that Biden kept into place. And now Biden's claiming credit for all this growth in industry in the United States.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. And I've said this many, many times. And when I worked as an intelligence analyst, as a political commentator, and as a radio host and a broadcaster, the reality is that presidents normally can do very little to improve an economy overnight. Their power is quite limited. Yes, they're the most powerful politician on the planet, but there's only so much they can do. First off, there's only so many executive actions you can legally take. Many of those things that the executives are taking are illegal, unconstitutional, and they get away with it because Congress doesn't say anything, and then I'll challenge them. But much of what they do is illegal, like blocking the Keystone XL pipeline. There's no authority to do that. You cannot regulate interstate commerce as the president. Only Congress can do that. And there's nothing preventing the Keystone XL pipeline from going through right now except an executive order, which is illegal. So, but what a president can do, it's like gasoline prices. So like Trump took credit for low gasoline prices and Biden ignored the high gasoline prices. As a president, there's very little you can do to lower gasoline prices in the short term except flood the market with its strategic reserve, which is what we've done. We've drained it. There's almost nothing left. That's what Biden did. And as far as the economy, the actions you take as president take time. If you convince the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate by 2 percentage points, which would be historic and never happened before, it isn't going to happen overnight. The economy grows. It's going to take a number of months for those things to kick in. And when it comes to building factories and bringing production back to the country, factories, unless they're mothballed, don't just get turned back on. I mean, look, they're going to turn on reactor number 2 at 3 Mile Island. Well, they shut it down 5 years ago. It's there. And the only reason they could do that is they're going to pour $1.9 billion into renovating and updating it to 21st century standards. And that's still going to take 2 years for an existing nuclear power plant that was just shut down. So imagine putting a chip factory in New Mexico or building an assembly line in Kansas. It doesn't happen overnight. So presidents can bring it back. Trump set the conditions and Biden is reaping the benefits. And it was the same thing. Clinton reaped the benefits. Clinton reaped the benefits and gets credit for 18 million jobs, but he didn't do anything that created that environment. That environment was created by Bush Sr. by colluding with the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates to historic lows so that money was available, by going through a period in which they went after weak savings and loans, which were a big drag on the economy, and by setting the stage. He was just lucky that the internet revolution came along, which was not his doing. And that technology sparked massive growth, huge new marketplace, ideas, software, distribution, services, all that came into play, and increased productivity, which is a result of the layoffs that took place in white-collar workers in the late 1980s during George Herbert Walker's administration. He didn't have anything to do with it, but what happened in the late 1980s is Kodak, IBM, all these big corporations were fat and heavy on white-collar workers. And those white-collar workers, for the first time in their life, were out of work. 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 55-year-olds, mostly white men who'd never been unemployed. They worked at General Motors their entire life as they worked their way up being executive. They worked at Hewlett-Packard. It wasn't Hewlett-Packard, but they worked at whatever company, Kodak, and then Alcoa. Suddenly, Corning is another one. Suddenly, tens, hundreds of thousands of these men and women, mostly men, were laid off in the late 1980s from about 88, 89 until the early part of the 1990s. The reason that Bush lost the election is because those disgruntled middle-class voters who had guaranteed jobs for life in their view, and suddenly they were left out of the American dream. And they voted for Ross Perot, many of them, which got him 19% of the popular vote, which threw the election so that Clinton could win it with just 38% of the popular vote. Or 42% of the popular vote. He won it with the least amount ever, percentage-wise. So presidents can change things, but it takes time. And Biden is taking credit for things like, oh, I brought 40 million jobs. No, you didn't. People illegally shut down our economy across the 50 states. The federal government didn't intervene to stop them from that stupidity. And 40 million people were thrown out of work for a period of time. Many of those jobs remained, and they simply went back to work. But Biden wants to claim credit for it. Now, the conditions for where we're at now were created during Trump's era, especially the tax cuts, especially the corporation tax cuts, the corporate income tax. That was huge. Lowering that down to the 20% range was one of the most important things ever done. Quite frankly, if I was president, they would not like me. There'd be no corporate tax rate at the federal government. None. The federal government has no business taxing corporations. Corporations create jobs. Corporations generate revenue for the government because the income taxes the employees that work there. When you expand and create new jobs, you generate money for the government. Why should corporations be paying taxes to the federal government? If states want to tax them because they're in their jurisdiction, different story. But the federal government has no claim to a corporation's income, none whatsoever, because they tax the corporation's income, and then they pay your salaries. They tax your salary on top of that. Then when you pay off shareholders, investors, you get dividends, or corporate bondholders, they pay tax again. So they tax the same money 3 times. It's immoral, and it's bankrupt. Flat tax, 10%. Case closed.
This is where you and I have differed in the past. Is I don't think people should be paying personal income tax. However, corporations or businesses have always paid taxes to the government. That was the indirect tax that was imposed at the beginning, which led to the whiskey rebellion.
Corporations have not paid taxes. That was a good and service. Whiskey production. It was good. It was put on whiskey.
It was applied to businesses. It wasn't applied to people. It was applied to businesses.
It was applied to whiskey, the production of whiskey. It wasn't applied to wheelbarrow makers. It wasn't applied to, what are those guys called? I forget the name of these. They have a name for those guys. It wasn't applied to cooks.
This is how our government first started. When we first started this country, they were applying taxes to businesses. Whiskey may have been the first step. I don't know. But the point is that businesses paid taxes originally. We paid those taxes through our purchases. Nowadays, we got a personal income tax. So now we pay both ways. We pay the direct tax as a personal income tax, and then we pay the indirect tax, which applies to corporations. So we're getting the screws turned to us 2 times.
Well, it's a matter of semantics, but let me be clear about something. Some beer manufacturers also produce other things. So there's a time some beer manufacturers also produce ice cream and milk or soft drinks. Okay, if they're taxed on the whiskey they produce, but not taxed on the sunglasses they produce, they're taxed on the product, which is what happened with whiskey. I doubt there are very many people making whiskey that were diverse in the late 1700s. They were making ice cream.
Making sunglasses, I'm sure.
But you get my point.
Yeah, I understand your point.
Corporations should not be taxed. That's ludicrous. And it's not that much money that comes to the federal government. It's just a few $100 billion in a $7.4 trillion budget. Stop it. And that's where the economy will grow.
The logic you're working on is a big manufacturer comes to town, sets up a big brick building, starts manufacturing products. And because they manufacture these products, they draw workers, they draw employees, they draw other outsourced things. So now you get these small little restaurants pop up, gas stations pop up, all these things pop up, all because this one business moved to town. And so they create more businesses, they create more industry and more economy for you locally in your town, plus for the country. That's what you're driving at, I assume, is that because these corporations develop, then they bring more business. They bring more developments in business.
The problem with all of this is the default position of politicians and government officials. They think the corporations are evil and that they take advantage of people. And yeah, there was a time when Upton Sinclair had to write The Jungle because 8-year-old kids were with meat cleavers in meat packing plants in Chicago. Yeah, that's not the 21st century. Don't look at corporations as evil. Look at Starlink. Look what they've created out of nothing. Look at Tesla. Who financed that? Who got behind that? Look at all the different things going on here. What you have to look at this is that corporations are not inherently evil because corporations are not in existence. They're made up of people, boards of directors, which are human beings, CEOs, CFOs, human beings, shareholders, human beings, unless it's a privately held company, then it's family members or whoever started, and then the people that work there. But this is constant cleavage. Like, look at this scumbag right now. What's that clown's name? 7,000 square foot house in New Jersey. And he's out there, longshoreman, man, you're taking advantage of us. You're cheating us. You're cheating us. You're cheating us. Oh, stop.
Daggett or whatever his name is, Harold Daggett.
Yeah, that's the guy.
The union boss there.
Yeah, making nearly $1 million from the union and talking about he's been put upon. Come on.
He's got a Bentley in his driveway in his 7,000 foot square house, which is bigger than all the houses I lived in my 55 years combined. I mean, give me a break. No, look.
It makes $173,000 from his local unit and another 720 to 730,000 from the national union. I mean,
exactly.
He's not hurting here.
But idiots like that, and then the Biden administration, our economy is going to be crippled by $5 billion a day minimum in losses to our economy and GDP growth right now, because the Biden regime is asleep at the wheel, like everything else, completely ignored this. The National Labor Relations Board should have been involved here. The Department of Labor should have been involved here because this is a strategic issue. It's not a local labor dispute between, the local pipe fitters 2735 in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, against their employer. No, This is a strategic issue affecting the entire United States and our economy, imports and exports. We already have dozens of ships backed up at sea. Every day the ship sits at sea, they burn fuel. They have to pay salaries. What does that do to the cost of goods? It jacks them up. And by the way, the longshoremen are just despicable. And if I get hate mail for this, so what? Do you know what they want for a pay raise? Do you know what the percentage is, John?
77.
77%.
Over 10 years. Over 10 years. So it's about 7% a year.
So they're worth more, 3/4 more 10 years from now than they are today? No. I've never got a 77% pay raise.
They might be. I don't know. We have missed a lot of comments here. I don't know if you can see all the comments.
50%, they've been offered a 50% pay raise and they turn it down. Greedy.
So wait a minute now, because a lot of people have been making accusations that port workers make $150,000 a year. Why would they need a pay increase? And this is not entirely true. Majority of port workers are probably making about $45,000 a year. That's tops.
Well, the stat I saw is that a longshoreman with 6 years experience under these union negotiated agreements gets $39 an hour wage with 6 years experience to operate a forklift.
$39 an hour wouldn't be half bad. Did Todd freeze up?
I think he did. He looks perplexed. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Hey, I'm right here.
He's trying to loosen that back up.
I think we need to get Tennessee Emergency Management Agency out to East Tennessee because the water's affecting Todd's stream.
I'm just thinking we're probably pretty lucky to have. I know North Carolina got hit really hard.
So did Tennessee.
We had just in our backyard here, the neighboring counties. I mean, number of bridges washed out, dams failure, people washed away, a hospital flooded. I mean, it looks like World War III in some of these places. In fact, I just had a meeting with our sheriff's department with a few people with our school board. And they had just been over there working traffic, looking for search and rescue and stuff like that. And they said it looked like nuclear war over there in some parts of these other counties. So it's pretty bad out there.
I was down in Hurricane Andrew in '92, and it was like that. It was a disaster area. There was no signs. There was no nothing. If you didn't know your way around, you wasn't getting around. You was going to be lost.
Right.
Well,
living under bridges, and it was horrible. I mean, these people that had homes and they were living, sleeping on beds under bridges and stuff.
Since we switched to Helene, let's just talk about that for a second, if it's all right there, Todd.
Yep, absolutely.
I was in the Pentagon, in the basement of the Pentagon, when Katrina hit. For 5 days prior to Katrina, the DoD revved up its operations. We did planning. We moved over 10,000 troops into the Gulf states in Mississippi and in Alabama and Louisiana and Texas. We pre-positioned over 350 helicopters and wound up having, I think it was like 800 or 900 helicopters total involved, including active duty. In the end, over 126,000 active and reserve component troops. The later ones coming were mostly active duty because they pulled them. We were down there as operations. We rescued 18,900 individuals after Katrina went through. Yet George Bush is a racist because he was there the day it happened, but didn't land. Joe Biden, 5 days after the storms hit, is going to North Carolina. This is anecdotal. I'm not in North Carolina. I can't speak for this, but everything I keep seeing on social media from people who are able to get a signal out, able to talk to reporters, is that we haven't seen FEMA. FEMA's not here. Yet we saw Karine Jean-Pierre, America's favorite Haitian lesbian, giving a press conference in which she said that 4,600 members of the federal government are working on this. Where? From D.C.? But where's Joe Biden being a racist? Well, it's because mostly poor white people in Western Carolinas. That's why. They don't care about that.
Yeah. And George Bush hates black people. Hey, folks, you're listening to Common Sense Conservative live every Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. You can also catch us at wsmn.live. That's LIVE, wsmn.live. Numerous other podcasts, social media streaming platforms, too many to mention. But we're live every Wednesday night trying to make sense of the inverted reality that we're forced to live in. And, of course, last night I think J.D. Vance helped us get back to some reality. We just talked about that. We just talked about FEMA and a couple other things. Talked about, the longshoremen's, had shut down Gulf Coast and the East Coast ports, which is going to have a major effect on our economy very soon. Probably after a couple of days of being shut down, you're gonna see some major effects, I think.
Well, it's going to be mitigated because shippers knew this. John probably knows this. A lot of companies imported stuff in the months leading up to this because they knew it was coming, and so the stockpile of many goods and goods anyway are built up along the East Coast. But that won't last forever, right, John?
Yeah, no, I haven't exactly heard that, but yeah, they I know you said that last week, but I haven't checked into it. But the same thing for like Christmas. If they know something's coming, Christmas time, they start stocking up early and stuff like that.
They're already selling Halloween stuff in July here.
Yeah. So They do prepare and stuff like that. So if they know what's coming, yeah, I imagine they were.
So
well
here's
prepared for the most part.
Here's kind of a beef about using Restream so far, gents. I don't know where the comments are coming from. I got something that says paired. I don't.
They all say paired. That
Okay.
means they're paired to your wherever you tied them into for your
right.
platform.
But
we actually got Twitch coming in here, which is pretty amazing to see.
Is that where Operative 1832 is coming from? Because it doesn't tell me where they're coming from.
I don't know. I don't.
See, I don't know that.
Here,
with the other one, I could tell where people are coming from. But I just want to
at least you can see them. I didn't know if you were seeing them all or not.
Yeah, no.
Shawnee is yours off from your.
Yeah,
platform,
he's South African who's watching the program.
Indicate.
Okay, well, I just want to recognize the people who take the time to comment in the social media, and I want to address one of the points here. The question was: presidents can't fix the economy. Have you ever heard of Franklin Delano Roosevelt? Actually, I have heard of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, America's worst socialist. Franklin Delano Roosevelt delayed the economic recovery by a full decade with his socialist programs, which undermined the banking system, which undermined the economy, which made it almost impossible for corporations to make profit. His overreaction and his socialist policies undermined the only reason America escaped the Great Depression and then the recession that followed it, that was caused by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his deficit spending and his social networks, is because of World War II. The Nazis saved us. If it wasn't for the Nazis and Tojo, we wouldn't have come out of it till the 50s. Now, Franklin Delano Roosevelt destroyed the American economy. He didn't save it. I'm a historian and a political scientist. You don't have to take my word for it. Just do a little research. He did not save us. King Franklin is the opposite. We were fed that bottle, leftist socialist, as students in high school about what a great president Franklin Delano Roosevelt is. What a bigot and a racist the man was, an absolute virulent racist. And that's probably going to shock the listener. Go, wait a minute, no. He was all about civil rights. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. His wife was all about civil rights. He's the guy that stacked the Supreme Court to create Social Security to defraud Black Americans out of retirement because most of them were in the service industry that was excluded. Service workers who worked in the restaurant industry, caregivers, and people on the railroad were excluded from Social Security when it first came into play. Why? Right. Because mostly Black people were in those jobs. The porters were mostly Black. And most of the caregivers and most of the restaurant workers at the time were Black. And he also imprisoned 120,000 Americans in concentration camps, destroying their lives because he was a virulent racist. And that's the facts about Franklin Roosevelt, which people just don't want to admit.
Yeah, right. So, and every recession leading up to that, you had a lot of laissez-faire presidents. You'd have a recession, they'd recover. Calvin Coolidge, as an example. You'd have like a mild recession, usually a recovery. Hoover's recession was a little bit longer, but it was recovering. And all of a sudden, but he was basically set up to take that fall because he was only doing what every other president up to that point had done. All of a sudden, it was a prime opportunity for him to be blamed for a depression whenever it was actually recovering. Whenever King Franklin came in, his first 8 years, he prolonged it. It was going into that third term with, like you said, World War II, that actually saved America out of that. Yeah, you're right.
And we were already being lifted out of it before we were engaged in hostilities because we were supplying through Lend-Lease, the Brits and the Soviets.
Right.
And that was fueling our economy. People want to talk about military-industrial complex. That's what was getting us out of that. That it actually existed at that time. There's a question here from Alfred about hurricane situation. Let's be clear about something here. Hurricane Helene wasn't a hurricane when it hit landfall. It was a tropical storm. Arguably, it's probably the most vicious and dangerous and costly tropical storm in the history of the recorded history of the Southeast. No doubt about it. But it stopped being a hurricane before it ever hit shore. Yet the climate zealots still want us to believe it was a hurricane. But it really isn't the matter. It's a matter of semantics. It's horrible. And if you're down there, absolute disaster. And I feel for these folks. I'm very encouraged to see leadership coming, at least from somewhere, in the form of Donald John Trump, who down there making sure water got through to people, working on getting Starlink out to people with Elon Musk, while the Biden regime is busy in Rehoboth Beach, enjoying the holiday and weekend. Unbelievable. 5 days later, he's finally going down there.
So what did you get for rainfall there, Todd? Did they give you a measurement on that?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I mean, it was a lot, and it was fast. So obviously the flash floods is what took out a lot of these dams, and of course a lot of bridges. And some of these places they just weren't geared up for it. And of course, I don't think that they were ready for the amount of water that was going to come. And
I don't think anybody could be ready. I mean, that was biblical.
Yeah, by the time it hit, we have towns that were nearly washed away, multiple towns.
Yeah.
And within just a few minutes drive of my house, I could probably drive through or get close to on a good day go through several of these towns. Of course, now with the roads being washed out, different situation. But within one day, I could probably hit dozens of these towns, and now they're basically not there anymore.
It's hard. I mean, it was the video. I mean, like this one of the, I don't know if it was Asheville where it was, but there's a church out there. You've probably seen the video, and the church's brick gets surviving for the time being with this. And some people are on the edge of the bridge recording this. The water's almost up to the bottom of the bridge, and the buildings, this outbuildings just being swept away. One runs, hits the church and collapses. It's swept into it, comes around. The water must be going about 45, 50 miles an hour. The current takes it into the bridge. You can hear it smashing, aluminum tearing apart. Man, my heart goes out. And here's the thing. How long is it going to take? Never mind. I mean, look, we obviously the first concern is the human beings, the losses, the missing people, those still out there suffering, those without homes, all that loss, lives destroyed or greatly damaged. But all that aside, who's going to clean this mess up? I mean, there's dangerous debris, glass and shards and broken bits and this and that and trees and cars and toxic chemicals and minerals all over the place. It's horrific. This is. I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't know when I'm next going down the I-95, but I'll tell you what, man, that's pretty frightening, guys.
No, it's scary stuff, man. It's insane. You know, then people were really put through, well, Todd, you know, you were there.
Right.
They were put through hell.
Absolutely. And you have some people think, well, it's never going to happen. I can ignore that evacuation order, you know. If water is on its way to you, if you're not living on high ground, you need to get out. Because water is the most powerful force on planet Earth, and you know, water and a little bit of gravity. Next thing you know, your house is gone. That's it for you.
Yeah. I mean, we have part of Interstate 40 in North Carolina was washed out.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of work to put that back together. I imagine it's going to be a one lane for a while. If they even use it at all, they might just close it. Have to close it off due to safety issues. Yeah,
I mean, we were talking with some of the sheriff today, and he was talking about, just from what he heard from TDOT, Tennessee Department of Transportation, talking about, you know, some of these places it's going to take, you know, a year and a half just to get some of these bridges back up. So it's going to take a while.
I would be surprised if we get that close. I mean, the priority bridges they could probably pull off, but I mean, look, we haven't even started the Key Bridge in Baltimore, which is critical to port operations and one of the most important ports in the Eastern Seaboard. And we're still arguing about that. It's funny because the Department of Transportation is suing the shipping company for $100 million when we've been told it's going to cost $1.9 billion to replace it. Hello. No wonder we're in a deficit. You guys aren't very bright. Sue them for $2.5 billion in damages, you know, to compensate the people that lost income. No, so I want to, if I can, I just want to, real quick, guys, I want to admonish people who get a little carried away. Now, there are people who misstate things in the moment, like maybe Timmy Waltz, I don't know, but people who misstate things in the moment. But if you're honest and you backtrack and when people call you on it and you don't try to obfuscate, then you get credit for that. You get some respect. But there's also people, particularly on social media, on both sides of the spectrum, who will embellish and try to sensationalize to cause problems. And this comes to Tennessee, Todd. That's why I want to talk about it. So there's a post by a social media influencer who's a conservative, who's not doing conservatives any good on social media. And what he did is he posted the other day, showed pictures of and actually that's where I found that video of that river out of control. It came from his account. And he said, look at this. There's the Tennessee National Guard has been sent to the Middle East for Biden's war. There's no one there to help people in Tennessee. Well, first off, you know, my first question is, okay, I know the size of the Ohio and Pennsylvania National Guards. Let me look up the size of the Tennessee National Guard. It's 10,700 members. So now let me see if there's any Tennessee National Guard deployed by the NGB and the National Guard Bureau. 700 Tennessee National Guardsmen have been deployed to Fort Hood for pre-deployment training to go to Kuwait, which is part of a regular rotation of active and reserve component units into Kuwait for training. That has nothing to do with Joe Biden's war in the Middle East, nothing to do with Israel or Iran.
Right.
This happened. This person yesterday tried to sensationalize things by making it look like Biden was undermining. First off, for those of us in uniform, we know better how it works. We know how the Guard and reserve and components work.
Right.
You know, and so that's not helpful. That doesn't help people at all.
Yeah, and you talk about not there to rescue. While the waters are raging, National Guard and first responders, if they can avoid it, are not jumping into the middle of the stream to run out and save you.
Right.
I'm sorry. They are there to help you after the fact. Hold on.
Or ahead of time, putting sandbags out and putting barriers up. Yeah.
If at all possible. But their job isn't to, I'm being blown away. I didn't heed any warning. Yeah, all of a sudden, I mean, that's on you. That's on you.
You're not exactly flying a helicopter in 130-mile-an-hour winds to try to rescue people.
No, and
Nobody's flying 130-mile-an-hour winds.
people have this misconception that FEMA and the military is going to show up. They're going to have all the food and water and everything, all the fuel, everything you were ever going to need. They're taking care of every want and desire you ever could have. It's nonsense. They're a Band-Aid to get you from the really worst day you probably have ever had to a little bit better day. And then that's where your insurance and legislation that comes into play at that point. But they get you basically off of your back and
their management. It's in the name. They manage the disaster. So they're going to manage and coordinate for the water they bring in for drinking, and they're going to manage the resources and recovery.
It's interesting how when they responded to Andrew and Hugo, those were both during the Clinton administration, correct? I think they were. Yeah. FEMA wasn't expected to have all these things. They showed up and coordinated for these things because that's their job. But when Katrina hit, suddenly George Bush is a racist because black people are involved. Well, the bottom line here is that FEMA doesn't own helicopters. FEMA doesn't have trucks. FEMA doesn't have pallet loads of MREs. FEMA doesn't have warehouses full of water and communications equipment. They have a small amount of that for their team, for their leaders to show up. And they were made to look foolish, and maybe they deserve some of it in Katrina. I think they did deserve some of it. But by association, the stink was put on the DOD. And I'm going to tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Defense did heroic efforts before, during, and after Katrina. We rescued tens of thousands of people, saved many lives, and took care of what was going on down there. In spite of the obfuscation and the refusal of the governor of Louisiana and Megan of New Orleans to work with federal officials, because if you look at Mississippi, was hit just as hard on the coast, entire communities wiped out. But those people weren't present because they were evacuated. They listened to the evacuation orders, and Haley Barbour was the governor, a Republican.
Haley Barbour now. Hold on.
Haley Barbour.
You better get out there. That wind's going to be bad, boy.
That's right. That sounds like him. But look at the response and look at the effects and look at the recovery in Mississippi, the poorest state in the country, except for maybe Arkansas, as opposed to Louisiana, a place that should be incredibly wealthy given all its resources, natural resources, petroleum, oil, natural gas, not to mention its sugar cane, and of course its attractions to New Orleans and its shipping on the Mississippi. It should be one of the wealthiest states in the country. And there are a lot of rich people there. But look at the response and look at the recovery. Completely different stories, and it's all George Bush's fault. Look, I mean, I don't buy the compassionate conservative, and I'm not a big fan of George Bush, although I voted for him repeatedly. But the bottom line is that that's just wrong. People are just lazy. And you know why? They get away with this because people have an R next to their name. Shame on them.
Right. And think about it. You have Nolens, it's built below sea level. You had basically sea walls and levees that had not been updated and upgraded that the Army Corps of Engineers suggested years and years prior. All the money was misappropriated for decades by people in the state legislature, governors, and so on. And even local municipalities misappropriated that money. Wasn't spent where it should be. And all of a sudden you think, a once in however many hundreds of years storm comes through and decimates your city, predictably. And you're going to try to blame it on one guy because all of your needs weren't fixed immediately overnight by a magical agency called FEMA. Come on now.
I may have told this story before, but in the Pentagon, at about 2 days before Katrina made landfall and the weather was already hitting New Orleans, a young Defense Intelligence Agency analyst who's like 24, 26, just out of university. She's a Turkish national I think she was born there. Her parents are Turkish, but she lives here. She's a U.S. citizen because she had a clearance. Working for DIA. We're in the basement of the Pentagon, and we had the TV on. We're watching the storms, and the reporters out there. And she said, "Why aren't these people leaving?" I said, "Well, I don't know. They've been ordered to evacuate, and they're just stubborn." She goes, "Well, I mean, how are they getting them out?" I said, "Well, there's lots of ways to get them out. There's plenty of ways." She goes, "Well, don't they have a bunch of school buses?" I said, "Yeah." Well, why don't they use the school buses? I said, "You're right. Why don't they use the school buses? Why don't they take all the school districts and take the teachers or the janitors and take them out in the parking lot by the football field and give them 1 hour, commercial driver's license course on how to operate a bus safely and then load the buses up driving through neighborhoods and get people out of there and drive to Shreveport?" How simple is that? No, we had 20,000 buses destroyed, which cost $100 million to replace because the people in New Orleans are morons. Nagin is a criminal. He went to jail for his crimes. It's just, look, New Orleans got what it deserved. I'm sorry. I don't know if you live in New Orleans, but you elected those politicians and you have to live with the consequences. Hey, look, somehow, apparently we elected Joe Biden. Look how the world's falling apart. I guess it's our fault.
Yeah, 81 million votes. I mean, the most popular person in the history to ever run for president, to get unceremoniously ousted in less than 4 years later. Yeah, something draws a little question mark whenever it comes to 80-some million votes there. But I'll get canceled if I raise that question for real.
Well, somebody on one of our platforms was sharing with it's President Donald John Trump who showed up here in the chat, and I think that you're going to get blamed for all of it, buddy. It's all your fault. 81 million votes. You got 75 million. Did he get the job done? 12 million more votes than the most votes ever for an incumbent president, eclipsing Barack Hussein Obama's 63 million incumbent election results, 5 million less than when he ran for office in 2008. 63 million. You had 75 million. You still couldn't get it done. You couldn't close the deal. Where's the art of the deal there, John? Donald John Trump.
I mean, the guy did everything, but find votes in the back of somebody's Volkswagen. You know what I mean? I mean, for real.
Chris, you said something about hitting a button on your microphone earlier.
Yeah.
So during break, you might want to just check it because it does sound like it's just a slight distortion. And I got a message from Billy in regard to that. So, during break, it's not terribly bad, but he's doing it
now. Now he's
like, I'm not having this. I'm going to fix this now.
Yeah, he's MacGyver over here. He's got the Swiss Army knife. He's got a pair of Nike running shoes. He's getting ready to solve the problems of the world.
You muted yourself, Chris. Somehow you disconnected it.
Yeah, you're muted now. I cannot hear you. I think you did a thing. Can't hear you. He's trying
definitely
to talk.
on his end.
All right.
Oh man.
He's going to backup microphone.
Oh,
here.
he's got two of those things.
Is he going to get it up before
muted.
the break?
What's going on? No, because I can see.
No, he's. Oh, we're waiting. We're waiting to see if he's going to get it up before the break, ladies and gentlemen. We're about a minute out.
Is that? There he
There he is.
Yeah, he's back. Hey, see a quick mic change. He's back up and running. Everybody.
Yeah, no, look, Boy Scouts stay prepared. Soldiers are always ready. Always have a backup plan when you can do it. Got spares in the trunk. Got patches in the trunk. Got a compressor in the trunk. Got it all. Yeah, I tell you what. I rented a BMW in Germany many years ago, and the carburetor was not set right. So I've been driving it for a few hours, and it wanted to, every time I slowed down, it wanted to die on me. And I'm on the Autobahn. I'm like, I can't have this. Pulled over in a massive rainstorm headed down to Lake Constance, the Bodensee in Germany. One of the worst rainstorms I've ever been in. I pulled over before it got too bad. I opened the trunk up, and I'm going, man, I hope there's tools in here. And I opened a BMW. Man, they got a whole tool kit back there. Everything. It was like Tim Allen back there, man. Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Good deal. Good deal. I think we're about to hit our break, ladies and gentlemen. I should hear the music here in just
30 seconds.
30 seconds. But yeah, after the break, we're going to probably dissect a little bit more of the VP debate last night, and probably several things we're going to get up to. And also want to discuss, if you don't mind, maybe assess the war in Israel and, of course, Iran and everything like that whenever we get back to the break there, Colonel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, let's talk about the war. Look, we're co-belligerents now. Thank you, Joe Biden. We're in the war with Iran.
Yep.
Well, we know where we're going. But, yeah, we'll talk about that in the next hour for sure.
All right,
Probably
folks.
not a place we want to be.
No. But stick around, folks. We'll be back after the break right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM here in just a few moments. Take care.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. With total deaths rising to at least 182, Helene is now the deadliest hurricane to hit the mainland U.S. since Katrina in 2005. Getting a look at the destruction in the Carolinas from the air. President Biden making this promise in Raleigh.
I approve the request of Governor Cooper for the federal government to cover 100% 100% of all the costs for debris removal, emergency protective measures for 6 months.
Israel says its ground offensive today in southern Lebanon against Hezbollah militant targets left 8 Israeli soldiers dead. Federal prosecutors requesting an indefinite delay in scheduling the trial for the man charged in an apparent assassination attempt on former President Trump in Florida, citing a huge amount of evidence. With tens of thousands of port workers on strike, the worry for this man in Royal Oak, Michigan is potential shortages and price hikes.
This is a domino effect. Everybody's going to be affected.
This is ABC News. A Michigan court finds that concert promoter Live Nation is not responsible for the 2021 deaths of 3 men. Trio got carbon monoxide poisoning from a generator while camping at a Michigan festival. Louisiana used to bring a live tiger mascot to home football games, but stopped in 2016. Now the governor wants to bring that back.
Calling it an unbelievable opportunity, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry confirming his backing for LSU to bring back its iconic Bengal tiger mascot, a tradition that's been dormant for nearly a decade. The proposal facing fierce opposition from People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. PETA urging the governor to reconsider, arguing that bringing a wild animal into a chaotic stadium environment is both cruel and dangerous. Landry responding, saying everyone anxious about this needs to, quote, calm down. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Voting now underway in Alaska's annual Fat Bear Week contest. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
When it comes to my lifestyle and diet, I don't always make the smartest choices.
Touchdown! Woo! Hey, how about another round and some more chips?
But when it comes to taking care of my liver, I do make one very smart choice. Active liver tablets from New Nordic. I used to have real issues with my liver, and at my last checkup, my doc was concerned about my numbers. But since adding a once-a-day active liver tablet, my gut's better, I feel great, and my doctor's happy. I ask a lot of my liver, so the least I can do to say thanks is a daily dose of Active Liver.
You ask a lot of your liver, so give it the support it needs with Active Liver. You can find Active Liver at Amazon.com, or for a volume discount, visit NewNordicUSA.com. Go to new, NORDICUSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. New year, new you. New Nordic.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives. I'm Todd McKinley, right here in Northeast Tennessee. And, of course, holding down the studio there in Nashua, New Hampshire is John Grosvenor. And my co-host, Colonel Chris Wyatt, there in Central PA. We're using a new technology tonight, for new for us anyway, than we normally use. So we're trying to get used to some of the little ins and outs with regards to the app that we actually are bringing all this to kind of together, tie everything in, called Restream. I know last couple of years we've been using StreamYard, and of course I'm still getting used to some of the little buttons here on Restream. But regardless, we're here, and I know we probably have a couple of things we want to tie up, but I want to get your assessment on Israel with what went on yesterday with the strike, and of course the U.S. actually engaging last night as well.
Well, I want to make sure that you guys can hear me with this microphone. Can you hear me? Okay.
Loud and clear. Yeah.
Cool beans. All right. Okay, so gents, let's be very clear about this, and this is very distressing for me. I haven't heard any analyst. Linda Thomas Greenfield did ask United Nations Security Council to condemn what happened, but we heard, I think, from the UK, maybe one other Western country, but it's been a deafening silence from countries around the world. And here's the bottom line. Iran is a rogue state that has committed crimes against humanity, targeting civilian areas to sow terror and discord. and they should be taken to the International Court of Justice for violation of the norms by another state, acting as a friend of the court. This is unbelievable. They have fired ballistic missiles into civilian areas to intentionally murder civilians. Now, yes, in the Second World War, Bomber Harris torched the Germans in daylight raids, and we bombed them at night, or vice versa, whatever it was. And we firebombed Dresden. Yes, I know that. But the norms that we live under now for the conduct of conflict were adjusted after that war. And it is not acceptable to target civilians, particularly in an unprovoked war. There's no provocation for Iran to attack Israel, none whatsoever. They didn't attack Iran. They killed a terrorist in Lebanon who's not an Iranian. If anything, Iran had cause or provocation to come after us after taking out Suleiman. We took out Suleiman a couple years ago when Trump was president. But they have no provocation against Israel. This is a terror state of theocrats who have committed crimes against humanity, war crimes, and must be prosecuted. The International Criminal Court, I have to look and see if Iran is signatory to it. I don't know if they are. But if they are, they should be brought in the docket. Obviously, they won't be brought there unless Iran turns the people over. But the bottom line here is that this was unprovoked. The intent was to kill civilians, and they fired hundreds of ballistic missiles, which they claim are hypersonic. They weren't hypersonic. I saw the missiles coming in. Those aren't hypersonic. Those are barely my Chrysler.
Yeah, they had an old-timey stopwatch, like on 60 Minutes, to tick, 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 and they're sitting there looking. Is it here yet? Is it here yet? They're having a little coffee break. I'm down to half a cup of coffee. Is it here? Are they here yet? No, wait.
Hey, wake me up when they're going to arrive.
Yeah.
But the other part of this too is that I find it very annoying when talking heads go on to media and just immediately just say, they defend nonsense, which is, watching those things come in last night, seeing the video as it was released, because it was still afternoon here when this stuff started happening. And I covered that live as it broke. And here's the thing, almost to a man or a woman, these people that went on the networks, this is clearly the success of the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome caught almost all these missiles. That's not true. At least today, the Israeli Defense Forces admitted that wasn't true. But why are you doing that? Why are you sowing lies? Because it undermines the credibility of the Iron Dome and the other air defense systems out there. What you should have said is that they fired 200 missiles, an overwhelming number of missiles. The Iron Dome engaged, as well as other air defense systems. We were able to intercept and destroy many of these missiles in the air. We're still assessing how many of them got through. I watched 16 missiles landing somewhere. It was in Haifa or Tel Aviv. 15 hit the ground.
Right.
Only one was intercepted. It was barely intercepted a couple hundred feet above the ground. Who knows where the shrapnel went and how many people that almost damaged, how many homes it destroyed. So don't lie to people. It's just like the guy, the Tennessee National Guard isn't available because of Joe Biden's war in the Middle East. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help our cause. We are just. We are moral right. We must tell the truth all the time, because if we mislead or lie, it distorts the argument and they come after us. So if you're on the conservative side, tell the truth all the time.
Rights depend on your ability to be well disciplined and abide accordingly to it. Hold the moral high standard. It's incredible when people want to mislead people and go, but I got a right to free speech. But you won't have if you're going to lie about everything. It's like people who act wild with guns and stuff like that. They're coming after our guns, and it's like they don't have a right to. While at the same time, they're going to, as long as people are misusing them and mistreating their rights.
Right. Or
That goes back to the debate last night. One of the moments that I think a lot of people haven't latched onto, which was comical in its very nature, what little Timmy Waltz had to say. And just to confirm this, a short while ago, coming down my street, I saw 3 30-06s, 12 gauge and 16 gauge marching down the street in formation. There were no humans. They're just the rifles out there and the shotguns doing it all themselves. They put themselves in position to fire at someone, but then we talked them down.
Right. Yeah.
When Timmy Waltz said, it's the guns. It's the guns. No, it's not. It's not the guns. And then he tried to, because he tried to twist the words. As did the moderators, trying to say that Vance implied that mental health was the only problem. He said mental health is one of the issues that's affecting these shootings. And then Waltz tries to turn around and says, well, we can't pretend that mental health is the reason. Yes, we can tell the truth. It is a reason. Look at these wackadoodles. Look at the one there in Covington. Or where not Covington? Where's that? It's in Tennessee. Was
Nashville,
Nashville. Confused it with when the guy attacked the Navy recruiting stations down there a couple years ago. Chattanooga. But this shooter was mentally deranged. They had issues about what their gender and sexuality was. They had mental illness. Unbelievable.
The irony in this, Chris, is we didn't hear much about mental health related to guns until Obama wanted to push Obamacare. What was it? Patient Protection Act there. I can't remember anyway, he wanted to push Obamacare, and he started talking about the Association of Mental Health with Guns to sell as Obamacare, that this will help treat people with mental health and reduce gun violence. And then all of a sudden, the people on the right start talking about it, and the left's going, "Oh, you always lean on that. You always look at that. That's not an excuse."
But let's be clear about something. Obamacare produced no additional hospitals, no clinics.
Oh, I wasn't bolstering.
No, I'm not saying for you, but for the others, no scholarships for any medical students, no new specialties, no new drug developments in the pipeline. It produced nothing. What it did is it produced rich, elite, connected people who profited from it by jerry-rigging and scamming the insurance market and spreading the cost for people who don't take care of their health, not people who have fallen misfortune, but people who have lifestyle diseases that are a consequence of their own action, spreading the cost to the rest of us, driving up the cost of healthcare insurance for working families to unaffordable levels, and robbing 20 million working Americans of their health insurance when this thing was put in place. A fact that's never talked about. Oh, we give healthcare to 12 million people. Almost all of them were criminal alien invaders who had no business being in America. And you defrauded 20 million working Americans of their health insurance that was working for them. And we're still recovering from that now all these years later. That's the truth. That's the truth of Obamacare. It did nothing for healthcare. And oh, by the way, this nonsense about the American healthcare system, there is no such entity. We don't have a healthcare system. We've never had a healthcare system. We have healthcare that is spread across private providers, around religious hospitals, Lutheran hospitals, Catholic hospitals, municipal hospitals, federal government's VA, military system, for-profit hospitals and clinics. It's not a system. They're trying to make a system out of it. And all they're doing is compromising our healthcare. I just got another letter in the mail from someone I've never heard of telling me that my medical records have been compromised. I don't do business with them. But TRICARE sends my claims through them and divulges all my personal information and personally identifiable information, which makes me liable or subject to identity theft for someone I never consented to have my information. Yeah, that's all they do. They compromise us. So Mr. Fuji has, not Fuji, that's unfair. That's Japanese. Mr. Chang, that's more fair. Chinese communist, has all our information. And one day Mr. Chang will be knocking on the door. Sergeant McKinley, we understand you sleep with goats. Tell us more about that.
Oh, no. He put that on you. Todd, your favorite goat didn't drown during the storm, did it?
Oh, no, it's visiting with you right now. That's what I hear.
It's looking for protection, is it?
Yeah, it dropped me a line. Yeah, send me a postcard, right?
Yeah, one of the viewers just said that the LDS is a church in Utah. It's probably in Salt Lake, would be my guess. Yep. Yeah. So there's no such thing as a healthcare system. It doesn't exist, folks. That's just a myth created by politicians to achieve goals, to enrich their friends in the pharmaceutical, in the insurance industries, and the hospital industries, not to take care of Americans, take care of your healthcare. You are the last concern. I am still waiting to make it to my MRI that I've been waiting 9 months for. I'm finally going like in 2 weeks for an MRI. In the meantime, the condition has got demonstrably worse. When if it had been looked at 9 months ago, probably could have been avoided altogether. That's not healthcare. That's a scam.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden it's going to have to give you the surgeries and the other surgeries to help with the thing that you know, the different drugs. You got to get this. Then you got this issue calls about this drug, so you got to get another drug. So
no surgeries, no drugs. I'm just going to suffer in pain.
Ooh, yeah, it's a very sad situation. Yeah, and like you said, could have been taken care of had they had preventative maintenance in place. No problem.
Or responsive when I came in with a complaint. You know,
there you go. Yeah, you and your healthcare provider deciding what's best.
TRICARE.
Yeah, not somebody far off, a bureaucrat, or in the private sector bureaucrat deciding what you get or don't get.
Well, I had to go into the health benefits advisor at the clinic here, make a trip, burn $20 worth of gasoline, and a morning to go in to talk. Unfortunately, one of the ladies, there's two ladies there, was available, so I didn't have to wait, unlike sitting on the phone for an hour and a half with Humana. And I actually talked to someone that works for TRICARE because 3 consecutive claims that had valid referrals that they sent me to were all sent back to me to pay the bill. TRICARE wouldn't pay it. I'm like, well, what is this? Your bill is this. Your bill is that. I'm like, my copay is only this amount. And I paid my copay. And when I try to call TRICARE, it doesn't resolve. The provider is sending collection notices to me because TRICARE didn't pay their insurance. I'm not going to have my credit history affected. So that's why I went in there. And in the end, I find out that it's actually Humana, the contracted healthcare provider for TRICARE, that is not attaching the referral to the processing when they process it. So it gets to TRICARE without the referral. But you think TRICARE can figure that out. You get a claim without a referral, and you look to see the person is in TRICARE Prime, which means that they get coverage. They go, then you should simply go, hey, let me look in the system. Oh, they do have a referral. Let me attach that. But no, they waste my time, my money, my resources, and it's just
why would they use their resources when they can use yours for free?
Well, that's what happens. The lowest bidder.
Yeah.
Lowest bidder.
They got you on the hook for it, man. So
that free healthcare I was promised when I came in the Army in 1983. Yeah, not right.
So old Timmy last night decided he was going to blame Trump for what was that? He blamed Trump for SCOTUS rulings on abortion.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, the SCOTUS made the rulings, not Trump. Trump may have appointed him there, but Trump had nothing to do with it. It's not like he called up and says, hey, I want you to do this case. It was Mississippi.
Trump did not appoint all of the justices.
No, he did not.
So, Democrats appointed some of those justices.
Three or
he had three. He had three.
Three. Yeah, three out of
Kavanaugh and what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett. And who's the other one? Did he get a third one?
He got three.
He had at least three. I remember that. But anyway, the case came out of Mississippi, and it was the Dems. It was a left. It was for abortion that didn't like the ruling in Mississippi because let's face it, SCOTUS or abortion never stayed in the federal government anyway. The government just had a couple laws like it's not murder. They made a law in that regard. They had policies regarding how federal funds will be used for abortions.
Correct.
For
Reagan,
incest, rape, or women's health.
Reagan put an executive order banning the use of federal funds in federal facilities for abortions. I know this because as a young non-commissioned officer, I was approached by my squad leader and told I was going to take a soldier to Frankfurt for specialized care. Okay, that seems odd, but hey, I'm a young NCO. I just do what I'm told. Got a vehicle out of the motor pool. A couple of days later, drove this young soldier, female, to Frankfurt, and then dropped her off at the building. And I went and I didn't drink coffee, but Coke or something, who knows, whatever. I went to PX, which is not too far from there. I picked her up later on, gave her a car. It's a 75-mile drive back to Bad Kreuznach. And she started getting she was sullen and quiet, and it looked like she was a little emotional coming back. And we stopped at the rest stop, and I said to her, Private so-and-so, I said, are you okay? She goes, no, I'm not okay. I said, what's wrong? Well, I mean, I didn't want to do that, but I thought I had to do it. I said, do what? She had an abortion. And I was made an agent of the state facilitating her abortion. And I'll never forgive the Army for that. Never forgive them. I think that was morally reprehensible to have me do that. I understand why they did it, but they should have told me and asked me whether it was against my conscience or not. If they had asked me, I mean, I would have done it for the welfare of the soldier, even though I opposed what she was doing, because that's not my choice. But I mean, that's always been in place. They try to get rid of it. Gorsuch is the other one. Thank you.
So, I was going to say, Ants just answered that. But yeah, so I mean, it's always stayed in the states. The states made the rules for abortions. The feds never made these rules. So they were always variable within the states to begin with. So in Mississippi, they had, 15 days to determine whether you're going to have an abortion or not. And they didn't like that law. So they would try to take it to the Supreme Court, said, no, we got rights. We should have a longer period of time to decide this. That's when all this happened. It was because they were suing the state.
Right. The Dobbs decision backfired on the leftists, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no, it absolutely, it's like a boomerang, came back and smacked them right in the forehead, as it should.
Unexpected.
Because Roe versus Wade was unconstitutional. The federal government does not have the right to regulate abortion. The 10th Amendment expressly forbids it. And that's all that Republicans need to say. And they should have been saying that for years. But instead, they get in this whole thing, it's killing babies. It is, but you're not going to convince people that, want to have that option available. And by the way, 25% of women who favor abortion rights in America in a poll are voting Trump. That's a shockingly high figure. Usually that's a 90% going the other way. So also Quinnipiac poll came out and Trump is up by 6 points in Georgia now, up by 2 points in North Carolina. It's all trending the right direction now. Kamala's falling apart.
Yeah, because they were running neck to neck in these states, these swing states.
Trump's I don't think's ever been up this close to the election since he's
not in 2016, not in 2020. No, he's never been up by that much or close. And there's always, as we've talked about before, and I've mentioned, you have the undisclosed Trump voter, even the pollsters. Right. People who won't admit they're going to vote for Trump, they go in that booth and they pull the lever for Trump because they don't want their friends and family to know that they voted for a cad, but they'll vote for Trump. And that has proven to be a 2 to 4% bump in both the previous elections in almost every state. So if Trump is even or behind by 1 or 2, then the odds are he's going to win that state. Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, he's going to get those, Nevada. So yeah, that's where the race will be decided. So I will be doing a live stream on my YouTube channel at midnight on election night, because I can't do it sooner. I'm a judge of elections and I'll be exhausted all day. I'll come back and I'll see the results. I don't get home till about 11:30 after I turn in the results, but I will do a live stream. The last time in 2020, I had a 9-hour live stream straight and I covered the elections until 4:00 in the morning.
Nothing's going to be pre-recorded, ladies and gentlemen. No victory speeches, nothing like that. You don't know who's won what, right? Until the votes have been counted. So
yeah,
and not a Democrat, so you can't be like, oh, we're declaring victory now before any votes been cast, because we know the results, by the way.
Yep. Well, Courtney's one of my viewers from my program. He's listening to the program tonight there from Utah, the Navy reservist, and Courtney says that the Navy's really let their physical fitness standards slip. It's not just the Navy. When I go to the War College, I mean, it's like it's the hungry hippos night. I mean, I think they need more material for some of the officers and for the NCOs that are working there. It's unfortunate. I don't know how we've gotten to a stage where we've let people's health slip so much. All I know is that I spent 36 and a half years in the Army, and I was never on the weight control program.
No, and another thing is, with the new physical fitness program and standards and all this stuff, I thought people were going to get more fit, in better shape.
Nah, I knew it wasn't going to be the case. See, because the thing about the physical fitness test for the Army, not to bore our listeners, but maybe they might be interested, is that the Army's physical fitness test didn't prove that you were physically fit.
No.
It proved that you had a minimum level of fitness that was necessary to walk, chew gum, wear a uniform. That's why you had to have a higher level of fitness to go into the Ranger course, because that's a demanding course. And so they made you do other things for it. When I went to the Air Assault School at Fort Campbell, it was mandatory for every soldier assigned to the division to attend it, but also others sent invitees. I went as an ROTC student from Ohio University. And in order to weed out the people that can't fit in the courses, because you only take so many students, they make you run. and the run, they take off at a pace, which makes a lot of people who aren't fit fade out pretty quickly. So by the first mile, a bunch of them have faded out and they don't pass the PT test, which they should have passed because they're winded. And those of us who expected it and sprinted like gazelles, we stayed, and then we had the classes. But no, it's that's the Army's physical fitness test said, with 2 minutes of sit-ups, or the 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and the 2 mile run. It doesn't mean you're an Olympic sprinter. You're not going to qualify for the Olympics. You're not going to play in the WNBA or NBA for that matter, but you are able to have a reasonable level of fitness. You can do basic tasks in uniform. And that's what it was all about. So they switched. And also the utility of that test, Todd, you can attest to this, is you didn't need special equipment. You could be in Botswana like I was. All you need is 2 miles mapped out, hopefully on flat ground rather than hills, and someone to time it at the start and finish. And if you're clever, you'll do it in a residential neighborhood where you have the same, you go around, they run around, they come right back to the same place. And you put a person or two along the route to make sure nobody cheats, if there's a way to cheat. And then you do 2 minutes of push-ups and sit-ups. You need no specialized equipment other than a wristwatch or, a phone to do it. And that's it. Now you have to have a medicine ball, and it takes hours to set up and a half a day to get a PT test done. I mean, it used to be in the day. We got a PT test done in the morning. We're back at work by 8:30, 9 o'clock, worst case.
Right, absolutely. And you can work your whole day, not a problem. And I always loved, the push-ups were my thing. 92 in 2 minutes to pass the 18 to whatever it was. I tried to maintain passing that at a max throughout my entire career. And for the most part, I maxed my push-ups every time. Sit-ups were sometimes hit or miss if I was out of shape. But for the most part, I could actually 82 push-ups, 92 sit-ups. But those 92 sit-ups or 100-some sit-ups in 2 minutes, they can get those hip flexors, man. They can burn you out big time.
Well, what I have to say about that is that when I was 18 years of age, it was 67 to 69 push-ups and sit-ups to max it. Then when I got my 30, suddenly it was 80 something. Well, what is this? I'm older. I'm falling apart. Now I've got to do more. It was crazy. It's very frustrating. But anyway.
the two mile test was 11:54 to max. And each of those, I'd either get like a 290 something, 300 sometimes. But sometimes I was always off by like a sit up or two from maxing everything. So you don't get the extended scale, however that mapped out. I don't know, but it's always like 290 something. All these people are getting 300 something. It's like, man, 2 more sit-ups, I would be in the extended scale for what it's worth. I don't know. It's just one of those young soldier bragging rights,
Well, I for a long time, because when I ran at basic train, I ran 10:32 for the 2 miles. That was unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. That was not Olympic speed, but that's fast. And then I maintained after that 11:30 for a long time, for a number of years in uniform as enlisted and as an officer. Then it slipped to 12 something, and then I was in the 13s. But something was happening which I didn't realize. I thought I was just getting older and it was more challenging. Maybe I put on a few pounds. And it wasn't that. I developed adult onset asthma, which I didn't even know I had, which was making it difficult to breathe. And I thought I was out of shape. I wasn't out of shape. I just couldn't breathe. I wasn't getting enough oxygen. And then I come to find out for years I was struggling with a paralyzed diaphragm. So one of my lungs doesn't inflate when I run. I mean, I look back on the fact that's a trauma injury from combat I didn't even know about. I found out by mistake when I was working at the War College because I injured a rib, and they looked at me like, you got a paralyzed diaphragm. And so finally realized that it was probably superhuman of me to maintain a 13-minute something pace and then a 14 or 15-minute pace for people my age who are running 16, 18 minutes. And I was still doing it at a younger person's age because I just tried so hard. Imagine if I could have breathed properly. Oh, my goodness.
Man, yeah. You're running on half your lung capacity. That's incredible.
Oh yeah, but remember that I hit the 10s occasionally, and I remember doing PLDC, Primary Leadership Development course at Fort Hood. I don't know what it's called now. It was Warriors Leaders course for years. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's that primary leadership course that you take just before you go from E4 to E5 in the Army. And I remember we had two different groups for the PT test. I went in the second group, and a guy who was originally from Kenya went in the first group. He ran like 8 minutes and something. Everybody's just looking at this guy. And I'm thinking, man, I was actually pretty fast at like 10 minutes and something. And he's 8 minutes and some 2 minutes and some change well ahead of me. And I'm like, man, forget about it. I'm slow compared to this guy. And I was the second fastest guy in the entire course.
Yeah, did you guys see that the Marshal Service arrested 3,400 suspects wanted for murder, rape, robbery, and charges, but 20 million criminal alien invaders still evade them?
Oh, really? Yeah, they can arrest that many people, but yet somehow, how are you going to round up and deport all these other people?
According to Tim Walz, we got to stop blaming them immigrants. We got to stop blaming them for everything. It's like, wait a minute.
No one's blaming legal immigrants, and that's what we'll call them, legal immigrants. Illegal immigrants, we'll blame them for sure for the things that they're actually guilty of. Absolutely. And regardless if they're good, decent, honest people, the fact that they're here illegally certainly hurts our economy, amongst other things.
Yeah, no, look, it's so the one thing that I like that Vance came back on was when Waltz was talking about housing. But this kind of, okay, I'll get back to the point where I was happy with Vance, but I'm also going to pick a bone with Vance. Why isn't Vance pointing out the obvious? Why is the government trying to get involved in home building? That's not the role of the government. The role of the government should be ensuring that safety standards are met, that people aren't being cheated, that it's a level playing field, not to build houses with our tax dollars so people can live in them. It's a tragedy of the commons. They won't take care of them. We've seen Cabrini Green. We've seen public housing. I lived in public housing. People didn't own it, so they abused it. They didn't care if they marked up the walls or broke the toilets. It's not on them. They don't have to pay for it. Someone else is paying the foot in the bill. So, this is utter nonsense. That's what Vance should have said. The government has no business doing this. The government has no business subsidizing home buyers. This is ridiculous. But what I want to say about what he said that's true is he said, for every illegal alien in this country who has no business being here, who's here illegally, they need a place to live. That's one less house for you and me. That's one less house for a working American. That's one less house for people who are on our team. Why are we sabotaging our country like this? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Right. Absolutely ridiculous.
What do you mean? I mean, there was a guy just did a video here in New England. He went around Devon's, Mass and Air, Massachusetts and stuff. And he had a guy leading him around and showing him around with motels and things like this. And he says, so you mean to tell me that these motels with these signs turned inward? And so you're just seeing the back of the sign because they're turned towards the lights. Those are the signs where they're storing these illegal immigrants. He goes, absolutely. He says they cover up the signs or they turn them inward because the government's paying to lease out these motels. Like
right, they don't want any guests because again, look, it's like that all over the country. A lot of these crooked NGOs say they're doing great, wonderful things. They're bringing people in this country. I saw a story today about a gentleman who's from Cameroon who's gay, and he was caught having sex with his boyfriend. Well, that's not very popular in Africa. So he was ostracized, kicked out by his family, beaten up by the neighbors, and he fled the country. He went through and lived in 5 different countries until he was able to destination shop after he got caught. Get this, protesting in Tunisia, not even a citizen, protesting something about the UN. So he got arrested and they deported him. Well, he claimed asylum and we brought him to America. Why? That's destination shopping. He had a safe refuge, follow the rules and laws there. You don't get to come here because you have a sexual orientation that gives you a free pass here. That's ridiculous. Now, it's very different if you're a young man who's gay in Syria and your life is in jeopardy and you happen to be in America on a business trip and then you get a death threat from back home because you're gay. Well, you're here legitimately, legally. You say, look, I want to apply for asylum. My life is in danger. That's legitimate. It's just not legitimate to skip through 5 countries breaking their laws and then coming here and we're stuck with you. By the way, that's one less house for that gay man. And then it's not that he's gay. He could be white or black or Russian or German. It doesn't matter. He has no business being here. He's destination shopping. That's not fair to Americans. We earned our sovereignty. We fought for this country. We defeated fascism. And we'll defeat Democrats in November.
And Nicholas, on your site here, Chris, I think it's your site, brings us up here, and there are vets on the streets. They're literally, some of these motels have kicked out Americans that were staying there and like, no, you got to go because we've got a better deal coming. That's
all true. And Nick is a veteran himself from South Africa, and he's a stand-up guy. But let me be clear about this, and I'm not attacking John or Nick. I certainly don't want to attack my co-host or one of my loyal viewers who actually helps financially with my channel. But we have to be careful because in America, the story about homeless vets, which is where this heads, is overplayed. First off, many of the people who are homeless who claim to be veterans holding up signs are frauds. They're not actually veterans. If you actually go out and find out and talk to these people, you find out that many of them are not veterans. Yes, There are veterans who are on the street, but there's no reason whatsoever any veteran should be homeless tonight in America because there's a toll-free number you can call from any mobile phone, any fixed line in the country. You can even go on the computer and write to the VA 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even Christmas Day. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the veteran who's homeless. You just have to be aware of a veteran. I could say, listen, I know a veteran who's walking on the streets down here, doesn't have a place to stay tonight. His name is John Schmedlap in this town. And the VA will take the information. They will get a representative to come out here, and they will find an abode for that veteran tonight. Now, in many cases, the first night or two is in a hotel paid for by the Veterans Administration. After that, they're going to put you in temporary housing somewhere, or sooner if they can find one. But no veteran. Now, you can stay in that up to 12 months normally, and that is reasonable. If you can't sort yourself out and find something after that, then that's on you. That's not on the people of America. That's not on the Veterans Administration. There's no need for a veteran to be out there. If you know a veteran in need tonight and you're listening to this program, go to the web, look up the number for the VA hotline for homeless veterans, and I guarantee you'll get the response you're looking for. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that many of the veterans who are actually homeless are homeless by choice. Like many people are homeless. Yeah. It's a consequence of mental health disorders and issues, post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. And that is a problem. Those people are out there by choice. And some of them you put in homes, in housing, and they leave it. They don't stay there. So we have to be very careful when we talk about veterans and benefits not being provided for them. If you are a veteran, an honorably discharged veteran, any honorably discharged veteran can use the entire Veterans Administration healthcare system. Now, they're eligible for it. John, you're not a veteran, correct?
Correct.
So you can never use the VA system.
Correct.
Unless it's the only hospital and you have an emergency, then legally you can do it. But you can't use it for your regular care. But any veteran can. But the problem is that unless you have a service-related disability or you're medically disabled with the VA, you have to bring your insurance or pay for it. Admittedly, it's much cheaper than going to a private clinic or to a facility. But we have to be very careful about people talking about how we treat our vets. This whole thing with the PACT Act got blown into something that it wasn't. Now American taxpayers are on the hook for people who don't have to prove, and there doesn't have to be any evidence that their service caused their illness or their cancer. And that's going to cost us hundreds of billions of dollars for illnesses that are not a consequence of service-related disabilities. And that is a tragedy. And look, I'm a veteran with 36 years. Todd's a veteran with over 2 decades. We got over half a century of service here, and we respect veterans, and we love veterans, but I don't like our country being scammed. And not by the veterans, but by the politicians who screwed us with this. Just like George Bush's $600 million program of prescription drugs for seniors. We got screwed. We're still paying for that every year for discounted drugs for senior citizens we're paying the bill. Those of us who pay taxes. Anyway, go ahead, John. You want to jump in? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I think there have been instances where we've heard on the news quite some time ago in New York City. I remember it was an older gentleman who was a veteran who was kicked out of his apartment for making room for homeless people. So I think some cases it's happened. Maybe it depends on.
I'm not disputing that, but the problem I have to be careful of is that the story about being kicked out of a hotel in New York was debunked. And a lot of us were like, well, I was upset when I read about it because it came from several news sources, one of which I trusted, and it turned out to be nonsense. So we just have to be careful. And that's why I go back to the point that we have to do what's right, moral, and just all the time. Always tell the truth so we don't get caught in this nonsense of defending ourselves either for a lie or an omission that was unintentional. That's why I got to be very careful.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad my follow-up was going to be, I'm glad the conversation went this way because you put out some really good news regarding this. Well, maybe news for a lot of people, it's news for me, I think. I know you've hit on this before a couple times, but it's nice that anybody listening now has got that knowledge.
Well, I mean, it's important. I mean, look, here's the thing. So, Todd, we talked about this last year, if I remember correctly. The Washington Post, I think it was last year, maybe it was early this year. The years are just rolling by. But the Washington Post put an op-ed out there, and this was prepping the ground. And I told people that's what they're doing. In the op-ed, they were upset that veterans get unfair benefits. So they wanted to means test our VA disability checks. So that young kid, he's not so young anymore. He's in his 30s. He's a double amputee from a roadside, IED or something like that. The former Marine or Army soldier that's on Fox News. I don't know his name.
Right.
Yeah. Really, really annoying Southern accent.
Yeah. Jackie Jones. Or what? Yeah. It's
something like that. Yeah. Nothing against the guy, but that accent's like chalk on his fingernails on a chalkboard.
No, I get it. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I like Southern accents, but that one anyway. But the point is that I don't know what his salary is at Fox News, but I'm willing to bet he makes $250,000 a year working for Fox News as a journalist. That'd be my guess.
Joey Jones, something like that.
Something like, that's the guy. So what they're saying, with not knowing that guy in the picture, they're saying that it's unfair that Social Security disability doesn't pay people enough to live off of. Well, Social Security disability is not veterans disability. Veterans disability is recompense from a grateful nation for the losses you suffered in your physical or mental well-being. And it's an effort like an insurance settlement to make you whole. It doesn't make you whole, but that's the intent. If it made me whole, they'd be giving me $40,000 a month. That would make me whole. Not what they're giving me, which is peanuts, but it's tax exempt. Social Security disability goes to people who never even pay into Social Security. It's a payment, a partial payment to help people who are unable to work in the workforce. That's what it is. It's an insurance payout for people oftentimes who didn't pay in, and for those who paid in who are no longer able to work. You can't equate the two things together. But they want a means test and say that people making over $200,000 a year who are veterans shouldn't be getting disability payments. Excuse me? So my testicles are laying in Iraq, and you're not going to compensate me for not being able to have children? Excuse me? You think that's the same as somebody who sliced off their finger in a meatpacking plant in Nebraska as a criminal alien invader? It's not the same. Spare me. But they're prepping the ground to take away veterans' benefits. That's what's going on. It's already been started.
That's what government does. That's what I complain about. I like, my go-to is always Social Security. You're hitting on disability there, but Social Security was sold to people as a program, as a continuation of your income, including inflationary rates as they increase. So it was meant for you to be able to retire with dignity. But through the years, as people were living longer than expected, they couldn't adjust for this. So then they decided, well, it's no longer retirement. It's a supplement to your retirement. Well, there were people that were counting on that. One being my grandmother when she retired. She was born in 1918. So when this come through in the 1930s, she was working. And she had an expectation to retire with the dignity that was promised. But it wasn't there for her. She got a measly little amount, and she was very upset about it. And distraught, was wondering how she's going to survive. Of course, she survived because she had family. But if she was on her own and had nobody to depend on, who knows what would have happened to her, because the government promised something they did not deliver at the end of the day. And this is the problem with social programs. They don't work.
And that's the real problem with Social Security. It doesn't exist. It's vaporware. There's no lockbox. There aren't any investments like the National Sovereign Wealth Fund of Norway of Kuwait, where they can sell stock or sell land or sell minerals or take the interest payments off of something. There's nothing there. Every dollar that's ever come to Social Security has been spent, and many more. And promissory notes have been used to pay off people by putting loans out there, which the Treasury Department buys to give to Social Security. It's insane. This was put down as a supplemental system to help people during the Depression who are retirement age or those who became injured and unable to work. And at the outset, 34 Americans were working for every beneficiary. Today, it's less than 2 for everyone, about 2 to 1. Right. It's insane. It's insane. We're headed down the same path of destruction the Netherlands is down. The Netherlands is down this path because they made it so hard to fire people who were incompetent, who were cheated. You know, people stealing at work, and you couldn't fire them because of labor laws.
If this was a private corporation or a private entity, they could actually be sued for misappropriation of funds, right? Like Enron, you know.
Well, I mean, look, the whole thing could be done. I mean, first off, the King Franklin administration lied and said it wasn't a tax, right? And that's how they got it in. In the Supreme Court, they said, well, it's not a tax, it's a retirement fund. So, because they weren't allowed to make this sort of taxation. So they put in play. Then they came back and there was another court case saying, well, this is right, government can't do this. They said, oh, it is, we have the power to tax. The Constitution says we have the power to tax. And then they won the case by claiming it was a tax. I mean, that's the history of Social Security. It's been corrupt from the outset. I mean, I looked the other day at what I'll get, and the amount of money I'll get if I wait till I'm 70 isn't enough. It would pay my mortgage and my grocery bill. That's it today. That's all it would pay. That's it. It doesn't take care of it. It doesn't take care of anything other living. It's not enough. It was never meant to be retirement. I know a lot of people lived off of this retirement, but it was never meant to be that. The problem is that the government allowed people to believe it was actually a retirement plan. It was actually, and then they exacerbated this. They started taxing the benefits.
Bro, they built it that way.
They started taxing benefits during the Reagan administration.
Right.
People paid taxes on their Social Security payout, which is compensation. It's deferred compensation in its essence for when you worked. You're getting back what you put in. Now, people get back much more than they put in. That's the bottom line. But in essence, in theory, you're getting back what you put in. You should be paying taxes on that. It's a retirement. It's ridiculous. And that's what Trump said he wants to get rid of. No taxes on tips and no tax on Social Security benefits. And that's what we should have. Absolutely. And no corporate tax. Oh, let me shake it up. Donald Trump, I'm available.
And look, if you're going to give a little bit of money on Social Security, stop gouging their Social Security for Medicaid.
Well, look, I mean, if you're a self-employed person like I am these days, you really feel the pinch of that. And people that are self-employed know it for years. You're paying 18% of your income for Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. I don't even use those things. Oh, but you're paying for when you use it. I don't ever want to use it. I'm supposed to get free health care the rest of my life because I'm a veteran. I served 36 years. Plus, I get free health care because of the VA. So why am I paying for Medicare and Medicaid?
Because it's a social program. That means they got to pool everybody's money together for it to work, and then it still doesn't work.
It's called theft.
It is theft. You're absolutely right, but that's what social programs are. They're theft.
So Nick in South Africa, the veteran said, hey, Chris Wyatt, $40,000 a month. Can I emigrate? No, not unless you go to Tijuana and cross the Rio Grande. Well, Tijuana is not where the Rio Grande is. It's further to the east. But, you cross in Arizona, about Fort Huachuca, just get in. Tell them I sent you.
You want to follow the Zeppelin path through the land of ice and snow.
Well, we used to have these, not Zeppelins, but we had the aerostats that flew out there at Arizona, which monitored the border. They were based at Fort Huachuca, and they put them way up in the air in a cable, and they used it to monitor movements, moving target indicators. That's probably not the right language to talk about people across the border, moving target indicators. But
I kind of meant Led Zeppelin immigration song.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. That's before my time.
Going to California? Or immigrant song. That's what you're thinking, right?
The immigrant song, yeah.
Yeah, immigrant song. Yeah, that's really good. And it ramps up, right?
Oh, that's a good song. Yeah, it's fun to listen to. The beat on it's just, it's fast beat and stuff, so it's fun to listen to.
Oh, yeah, especially driving down the road fast.
I don't.
Like Stairway to Heaven, where you got to wait for the last
Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Back in that time, the most apropos song that applies today is it, we don't need no education.
I love Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Don't need no thought control. Talk about a prescient song. We are living in that world today.
Yep, or Idiocracy.
They were recognizing it back then. They knew what was going on. People were awake.
Oh no, they weren't. They were so high. They don't know what they were singing.
Pink Floyd was.
I know, man. Look, there's a reason they called them Starship. They went from Jefferson Airplane to Starship.
Yeah, they were really out there.
They really took off, right?
White Rabbit actually meant something.
White Rabbit alone, it was like their major drug song, right? White Rabbit.
Before they were Jefferson Airplane, they had another name, didn't they? I think they had 3 iterations of the band's name.
It was Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, and there's Starship, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's how it was. That's how they did it. They just dropped the Starship. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Ah, those were the days. I was just thinking the other day about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I was a freshman at university when that movie came out. It's the first movie I ever went to watch in the theater. On Buck Night.
Yeah, he's got a great set of tools. He can fix it. TV repairman. I can fix it.
Well, you see, Mr. Han, I figure since this is our time, I'd have some pizza on our time. You're right, Mr. Spicoli. It's our time. Class, who wants a piece of pizza?
While driving down the road, my mind began to wonder. It's funny that you bring it up because I was thinking about Judge Reinhold with that pirate's cap on, sitting in his car trying to.
I was thinking about Judge Reinhold in so many other ways in that movie. He did not come out well in that movie. But hey, it paid off. He got the Beverly Hills Cops movies, and he was in the most recent one, which was probably, I think, the best Beverly Hills Cop movie ever. Honestly,
it was really good. It was really good. They paid an homage very well, I think.
I thought so too.
I might actually have to break down and watch a Hollywood production. I haven't seen one in so long.
Oh, no. Listen. Look, okay. I judge movies based on whether and series whether they're woke or not. Okay.
This is not woke.
This is not woke. It's not woke, and it's also, you don't have to have ever seen any of the movies before to follow the movie, which is really cool. And the storyline is cool. It's not cheesy. Look, I watched something on Barack Obama's network. I think it's called Netflix. The last couple of nights. It's called Obliteration. It's ludicrous. I mean, if you look at it as a comedy or soft porn, then that's one way to look at it. But if you look at it from a serious aspect, you got people in uniform pretending to be military members with beards like mine, with unshaven, and hair down to their shoulders. And anyway, it's this. But and then they show the CIA headquarters. It's the Pentagon. They keep showing us. We go back to Langley now, and it's the Pentagon. Look, it's implausible, but it's a lot of crazy stuff if you look at it as a comedy, but it's very woke. I mean, of course, the boss is a black man at CIA, and the team leader is a woman in charge, arguing with the dude who's the one who's irresponsible because he's the white guy. Of course, and it's got something for everybody. Half the team is gay, a lesbian, and a gay dude. The others are straight, and
something we need to know about everybody on the team. What do you bring? Well, I'm gay and I do this and I do that and I make mean martinis. It's like, okay, so how are we going to catch the bad guy? Oh, I don't know anything about that. I don't care about that. But all these other things,
and all the real heroes accomplish everything are all women. Yep.
Oh, of course, yeah. Special Ops Lioness that's out on one of the networks. I don't know.
It's funny because if you go back to the 1970s and 1980s, when it came to homosexuality, they would portray this really heavy duty, like manly man is wearing a dress or something, and it was humorous because it was absurd at the time, and now it's the norm.
Yeah, there's a quick question from Nick Rose in South Africa. He wanted to ask Todd what SFC stands for. It stands for Sergeant First Class, Senior Non-Commissioned Officer. Yeah. So that's, I'm not sure the equivalent in South Africa, but it's about like a first sergeant, one step around close to that. So, yep. Yeah. Or regimental sergeant major is just a step below that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So no, but it's I watched this other thing on the Netflixy thing the other day, and and it's called Rebel Moon. I ignored it for a year, and it was good because they did another version. There's a follow-up, a second season, and I'm glad I waited because I got to watch 2 seasons. It's implausible science fiction, but the CGI is good. The characters draw you in, but again, it's very woke. None of the good guys are white dudes, and women are in charge, and they're always women of color and things like that. The storyline is implausible, but it's nice, popcorn, soda pop, sugary, enjoyable thing. But then the second season gets kind of very woke, and the storyline gets ridiculous. But anyway, it's. I mean, I could stomach that. But some of these things, like some of these things have come out, like Wonder Woman, I still haven't watched that. Wakanda, I still haven't watched these things. They're just too woke.
Did you see the new Beetlejuice?
I have not seen it, but I've heard good things.
And my wife once saw it. She said it was really good. I should have went.
I saw it. I think it's worth a watch. Yeah, it's fun. They throw back to some of the stuff from the original, but it's a good story. It's just fun. It kind of makes you forget, all the BS woke stuff that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Well, I don't know if it works. Let me see. Kamala. No, it doesn't work.
The original Beetlejuice, as I recall, got a lot of downplay. They put it down, said it was a horrible movie and stuff like that. And it turns out it's like this cult classic. Everybody loves it.
Well, so is what's the one with Tim Curry there? that everyone loves.
The transvestite there from outer space.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it comes out.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Rocky Horror, yeah. It's about that time, by the way. They're going to have a marathon on one of the channels.
Look, I mean, I never got the appeal of it. I mean, I like Tim Curry as an actor, and that's the only draw for me. That people go to the theaters and do crazy stuff. I've never done that. I never got that. But hey, each their own. They all got something going, so it's just not my cup of tea. But then we all got different likes, different strokes for different folks. Kamala. Dang, it doesn't work.
The music was good in it. I mean, it was fun. It wasn't bad. I mean, I'm like you. The storyline was kind of weird and it's just out there, but it was an oddball thing to watch.
I did watch.
There's a good word for it.
I did rewatch recently because I was bored and it was late at night and I couldn't sleep. I did rewatch Dune with Kyle MacLachlan.
The originals.
Yeah, the real, not this remake garbage. They keep screwing everything up with remakes. Arrakis, the Dune. Oh man, yeah, the spice. More deep. With the little, what is? I still never got that. With projecting his voice with that little, thing in his hand. That's anyway, wiping out people. But the what are the worms? It's worm sound. The spice.
I have no clue. I think I missed it. You talk about like the early 1980s or something came out.
Oh yeah. That was when it was. Man, that's when Dune came out. With Comic Lock, it's his first thing I think he was in. It had Jürgen Prochnow in it playing his father. Had Sting was in the movie. Man, even Patrick Stewart was in that. He was in that.
No kidding. I remember when I was young there. When it came out, I wanted to see it, but I never got to see it. So I just
we don't salute NCOs either, Nick. No, he did. NCOs don't get saluted. They salute, but only officers get saluted. But officers, I'd say officers have to salute all day long. Imagine being a lieutenant; you have to salute everybody.
Everybody's below you and above you. He offers you a half a salute there, Todd. So that hand went halfway up. Kind of like almost turned into a wave.
So, John, you don't remember it, or you do remember Dune?
No, I don't. I don't remember. I remember I wanted to see it.
Oh, Sean Young was in that when she was attractive, very young, attractive in that. She was in that. Yep.
I should probably go back and watch it sometime. Look it up somewhere. I got Netflix and Amazon too. I subscribe to the World Economic Forum platforms, but I shouldn't, but I do.
Do you know what I started watching earlier before the program came on? I sat down to eat. I had to put something on, so I went on to Prime, and Clint Eastwood in Coogan came up. And so I played that. And I'm like, this, I think, is the inspiration for McCloud. Looked it up, and it was inspiration for McCloud. That movie led to McCloud. So he plays a deputy sheriff out in Arizona, gets sent to the big city of New York and all the shenanigans. I didn't get to watch it all because it was time to come on air and get ready. But and try to get the software to work, which took some time. But so I'll watch the rest of that when we're off air tonight and just see how it winds up being. But it's amazing. Clint Eastwood was in his 40s when he made that 1968. Dude was fit, still fit. His entire life he's never had an ounce of fat on the guy. Just amazing. What a stud. By the way,
movie Gran Torino, he's in the 70s, I believe, and
he's doing movies in his 80s.
Man, you could tell his age, but he was
he's still directing at 90. He was still directing a couple years ago at 90. So we got to talk about this, and before we run out of time, we got about 7 minutes left here. Did either of you see the disgraceful social media and media reporting on President James Earl Carter lying there like a corpse, talking about how he's celebrating his 100th birthday yesterday? It was sickening. No. I mean, you talk about abusing and misusing someone. It was absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. He looks like somebody that's in a coma, lying flat like this with his mouth gaping open. All those people running around trying to do photo ops with him. And they're talking, oh, he's staying alive so he can vote for Kamala. Oh my God.
Oh my God. He has no idea what the heck's going on. That is
horrible.
He's been in end-of-life hospice care for 18 months. Right. This is horrible. I mean, there's no dignity in this whatsoever. Look, I thought Carter was the worst president we ever had until Joe Biden came along.
You mean Obama?
Well, Obama, but now Joe Biden is even worse. He's. Yeah. I mean, the bar keeps getting lower, and if we go to Kamala, the bar is going to be below my ankles. I mean, Can you imagine went from Carter, who at least could walk and chew gum, who was a respectable, honorable, patriotic veteran who served in the war. We went from that to Barry Obama, who hates America, who's a communist, to Joe Biden, who lies about America and profits off of us, to Kamala Harris, who sleeps her way through America. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Right. But
the difference between Carter and what we have today is at least Carter had a heart. he was genuine. You know, he's the guy who built HUD housing and he worked it up until his 90s. He's the guy who had to actually want to make a contribution to society, not just talk about it and then rip everybody off and screw everybody over.
Yeah. But how infuriating is it that you have people like, let's say, like Obama, like Joe Biden, and now Kamala, who have occupied the Oval Office or are very close to occupying it, to be as unaccomplished as they were before they became president. They became vice president and president, and everybody wants to listen to what they have to say. They quote unquote respect them. And if you look at their background, their resume, their everything about them, and you look at stuff that you've done in your life, you're far more accomplished. I mean, all of us here are far more accomplished, far more educated than any of these folks for the most part. And here we are. We have to go out and beg, borrow, and steal to get elected to a local office. But these guys are pushed and poked and prodded up to become president. I mean, how infuriating is that?
Kamala Harris, who is a Democrat, couldn't describe collective bargaining. It's collective and everybody bargains, and at the end everybody's happy.
It's magical, and everybody.
And here we are with a port strike, and she still doesn't know what collective bargaining means.
Well, before we go tonight, I've just got to say the following. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? To tell you the truth, in all the excitement, I lost track myself. But being this is a 44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you got to ask yourself this one question: do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Dirty Harry.
And then the guy goes, "I got to know."
I know, it's hilarious. And he walks away. He's got buckshot in his leg. He just brushes it off like it's nothing.
I thought that was ketchup from the hot dog.
That was buckshot.
Oh no,
man.
it was buckshot because he has to go. And he's like,
new clothes. His friend.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we were told the systemically racist American. He goes to the hospital, not the orderly, not the check-in people, but the physician, the doctor who treats him. Who is he? The black dude. Yeah. 1969 or 70, whatever that was, and the black dude.
They had black doctors back in 1969.
Oh, they sure did, and they also had
systemic racism.
A Man from Uncle had, what's his name there? Bill Cosby. Not Man from Uncle. It was what's the Spy? I Spy, and he was the lead character on there. But the first regular main character in a primetime series, leading actor or actress who is an African American, was in what show? Does anybody know? Same time frame. First regular. Mannix.
Okay, yeah, Mannix. All right.
Yeah, his personal assistant was the first regular black actor who was a lead actor or actress in a primetime drama series. It was on Mannix. Okay. I love Mannix. It was a great show.
Yeah, that was right in the heart of all the PI detective craze, right?
Oh, you had Barnaby Jones with Buddy Epson. You had Cannon with what's his name? The guy that used to do he did the.
But he had so many great movies and TV shows about detectives and cops back then.
He did the radio version of Gunsmoke. He played the sheriff in that, or the marshal. What's his name there? Played Cannon. But anyway, yeah, that was all that stuff was on back then. It had Mod Squad. Remember that?
Right. Oh yeah.
I was thinking of what was his name? Robert Goulam from Benson.
No, William Conrad. William Conrad is who I'm thinking of. That's what it was. Yeah, because Robert Conrad was Baba Black Sheep. William Conrad did the voice on Gunsmoke on the radio, and then he was Cannon. Yeah, he was kind of really big, chubby guy at that stage.
All right, we're about to be played off. Any final thoughts there, John, real quick?
No, we got about 4 seconds.
All right, Colonel.
We can take a half a minute if you want.
Good night. We'll see you next week. 1 week closer to Decision 2024 in America.
There we go. 270 to win. We'll talk to you next week. Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSM 1598, 95.3 FM. Take care. God bless.